Bills Mafia, welcome back to another year of the Air Raid Hour Buffalo Bills pregame tailgate. Tonight, we'll be breaking down all things Bills Jets, but first, a little something to set the mood.
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another year of the Air Raid Hour Buffalo Bills pregame tailgate. Joined as always by my co-host, Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. And since it's a Monday night game, and technically this is your time slot, gentlemen, we are here with the guys of the Cover One Roundup, Uber Hansen and David Fox. How are we all doing tonight, gentlemen? Are we ready for some football?
What football?
Well, I mean, let's hope it happens, right? We got this weather situation coming in, and I don't know. It's always seems to happen to the Bills, this types of weird shit. So I don't know.
David Fox, you were telling us before we got on, like the anxiety starting to set in a little bit.
There's no anxiety because there's no football game being played. No football. The Bills and the Jets will be given a win or a loss, just sort of, haphazardly and random. Maybe it's a tie. Who knows? But there's no football being played tonight. It's just a sort of gathering of the minds, if you will, and then we'll figure it out afterwards. No, I'm very excited but very nervous. I hate that this is on a Monday. I was already nervous yesterday, just like week one feelings, right? And then just realizing, like, all right, the Bills play tomorrow night.
Yeah, I live out on the West Coast, so it's kind of nice for me. I get distracted by work all day. I literally got out of work maybe 25 minutes ago, sped on over here for this pregame show. Uber, you're Mr. Calm, cool, and collected on the outside. How are you feeling right now with Bills Jets on the horizon here within the next hour or so?
Yeah, the nausea hit me about noon today. So kind of working through that right now. A little bit of like a mimosa helps me get through the pregame jitters. But yeah, I mean, the second kickoff happens, all of a sudden, like I feel like a football player again, where it's like you just got to get that first contact and then all the nerves go away. So I just need it to get here. I need the game to start. Mm-hmm. And if this game gets delayed, I'm going to just break down into tears or something.
Yeah, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at my knowledge of weather is pretty much looking at what the Apple weather app tells me. And from what it tells me, this weather should be clear by 8 p.m. Now, the game might get pushed a little bit because it's supposed to be raining and thundering from 7 to 8, which is when the teams are typically warming up. But to my knowledge, kickoff should not even be affected even by rain. That should all be gone by the time the game kicks off. Has anyone seen anything differently?
It looks the same from what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. People online are saying that. That's kind of what I'm seeing. Seems like that won't be a major issue. As the game goes on, it'll probably get better in terms of like field and wetness and all that. But for the start of the game, you'll probably see a couple little things here and there.
All right, let's get started this evening. Let's hop right into Bills Jets, and as we always do on this show, we start with the inactive list. For the Buffalo Bills, the inactives are Damar Hamlin, Kyer Elam, Kingsley Jonathan, Jermaine Ifedi, and Alec Anderson. So the Buffalo Bills are going a little lighter in the secondary with a first-round pick, Kyer Elam inactive, along with Damar Hamlin. That's probably the most noteworthy thing. The second most noteworthy thing is probably the fact that with Jermaine Ifedi inactive, that means Ryan Vandermark is the backup swing tackle. Dave, Tilt, I'm going to call you Tilt tonight. Tilt, what is your initial reaction to this inactive list?
I mean, we were speculating, and I know you were speculating that last inactive spot could have been coming down to Elam, Ford. Mm-hmm. There was maybe a chance that Cam Lewis would be inactive, but obviously I think the Bills are valuing his versatility and his ability to play special teams in a game like this where any kind of degree of comfort or reliability that you can get and you can squeeze out of somewhere on the roster, you're going to take it in week one. And I think that's kind of what this inactive list shows to me. And then Poona Ford being active, I think that was something I was hoping for, given the Jets are likely to throw out a 3-man rotation with Breece Hall back in the mix, Dalvin Cook and Michael Carter. Feel like the Jets are going to test that Bills front early, and that's what I would do if I were them. So Poona Ford being active and not on the inactive list was a nice sight to see, but none of the others really surprised me, I would say. Obviously, the name on the list is Elam, but look, at the end of the day, the Bills are going to play the guys they think are the most ready to play right now and can help them in this game tonight. And that just happened to be Elam wasn't the guy tonight. So as far as what this means for him down the road, whatever, I'm not necessarily going to get into that right now, but it still stings a little, right? There's no way around it. It still stings a little to see a guy like that. But Uber, I mean, segue to you and the tweet you made the other day where you're like, hey, just pretend, Benford was a first-round pick and Elam was a 6th. It's like, it's all kind of fungible once they're on the team, right? So obviously the salaries don't work that way. The players, skill sets, etc. Like, it is a little bit fungible, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to look at this, right? Like the Bills are starting. You could just take it as the Bills are starting their first round pick and they're putting on the bench and they're as a healthy and active, their 6th round pick in Elam. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It does kind of stink that, you spend a first round pick on a player that really can't scratch the active roster. That's not great. But at the same time, the Bills are so deep at corner and at DB that you're going to see players like Elam. You're going to see players like a DeMar Hamlin, scratched. And if anything, there's really a positive behind that, right? Like Dane Jackson, I've been saying all off season, he's our floor, and he's a pretty solid floor playoff.
Dave Fox, do you have any interpretations on this inactive list? Any rage bait on Kyrie Elam you want to get out there?
There's nothing all that surprising. I'm only slightly disappointed that Kingsley Jonathan's not active, but that's a very, very mild thing in the grand scheme of things, just because the Bills have so much depth at that position as well. And same sort of thing with corner. I mean, yes, it's disappointing that Elam is not turning out as we would want him to turn out, but it would feel worse if that was their only plan, right? Like, this is not like a Spencer Brown type of situation, right? Where we're just like, that was your plan, and it's clearly you don't feel all that confident in it. They have Dane Jackson, like Uber said, he's kind of a solid floor. He is the floor, and that's a pretty solid floor to have. Benford has played clearly above expectations as a 6th round pick, and Elam's just there. And maybe at some point he starts putting it together, and obviously practice has a lot to do with that, and he's not apparently the best practice guy. But overall, I'm not like panicking about this. It is what it is. It's disappointing, but overall, this doesn't affect like how strong this roster is, because it's a very strong roster.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, too, like the Buffalo Bills, as you guys have all mentioned, they're going to play the best 48 on game day. And clearly right now, whether we like it or not, Kyrie Elam is not one of the best corners on this football team. Christian Benford and Dane Jackson have shown more than he has, at least in the eyes of the coaches in practice. So at this point, we can be upset, but I think that our energy would be saved having that conversation, not on a pregame show, because the point of this show is to sort of prepare ourselves for Bills Jets. So let's hop right in. And I know I sent you guys the show notes and I said, we'll talk about the Dolphins, but I don't want to maybe go down that rabbit hole just yet. Let's stick with the game at hand right now. And I want to talk about the Jets hype train, because obviously they were the Hard Knocks team this year. They have been the media darlings. If you turn on ESPN, if you turn on Fox Sports, they are the popular pick to win the East. They are popular picks in Super Bowl predictions. This is a team that is very much high on their own supply as well, with a number of players coming out and making some very boisterous statements, including DJ Reed comparing their defense to the 85 Bears. David Fox, I'll start with you. Are you buying this New York Jets hype?
No. Here's the thing. So the whole like 85 Bears thing. Let's learn some history here, folks. How about we start with like 2014, or not 2014, 17 Bears or something like that, 2018 Bears, whatever it was, when Fangio was there and they went to the playoffs and then like got bounced immediately. That was a great defense. That was like a great defense. 2013 Seahawks, another historically great defense. 2015 Broncos, another historically great defense. But like the 85 Bears are like, it's when we're talking about historically great defenses, you've got like the 85 Bears, you've got the 2000 Ravens and the 2002 Bucks, right? Like those defenses could not be penetrated. There was nothing anyone could do against those defenses. That's not what this Jets defense is. It's a good defense. They have a lot of good players. They have two really great corners and a really good defensive line. But this is not like some knock your socks off, I'm going to destroy everything in your path type of defense. And that's fine. You don't need to be if you think Aaron Rodgers is the type of guy that you think he is, which I also don't really think he is. But regardless, like this defense is just like, it's got talent. They're well coached. I think Saleh does a really good job of creating consistent coaching year in and year out from his time in San Francisco to now with the Jets. I think he does a good job of putting those guys and getting the right guys for his defense. 85 Bears is a lot. That's a lot for me. It's doing the most, and I'm not buying into that level of hype. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has.
Well, I mean, just even last year, right? I would make the argument that the San Francisco 49ers defense was better than the Jets defense last year. And the Jets were obviously a really good defense last year, fourth fewest yards per game allowed. But this is also a team that couldn't win games with that defense. And the differences between these teams and this being a team game is that those other teams you mentioned, David, the Ravens, the Bucks, the Seahawks, the Broncos, right? Those teams all won, double-digit games in their respective seasons, and even with maybe not great offenses either, they were still able to find ways to win games. And you had, multiple Hall of Famers on many of those defenses, and like, who knows what could turn out with this Jets defense? I mean, they do have to hang their hat on something going into a season where we don't really know, and this is maybe to the Jets' advantage, what this offense is going to look like. In some ways, and maybe that's an advantage for the Bills, right? That the Jets maybe don't have real live action to kind of know what they really are yet. So, and on one hand, I could see it as an advantage for the Jets. On the other, I can see it as an advantage for the Bills. But let's not make any mistake that this is some defense all of a sudden that like can't be scored on, or the ball can't be moved on them. So, look, I'm not trying to take anything away from them. I'm not saying it's going to be easy necessarily tonight for the Bills either. But I mean, to kind of talk on them in the same breath as some of these other teams just seems it's a little bit, I think, of Saleh just like rallying his own troops. That's what it feels like to me.
We got Aaron Quinn coming in from the Cover One Buffalo podcast. He says, I'm terrified of the right side of the Buffalo Bills offensive line. So Osiris Torrance is a rookie starting his first game ever. And then you have Spencer Brown, who all off season we've been talking about the question marks surrounding Spencer Brown. The good news for the Buffalo Bills is the one notable name on the inactive list for the New York Jets, because he's still ramping back up from an off-season injury, is Carl Lawson. So they have a deep defensive line. They have a very good defensive line, but the Buffalo Bills get a little bit of a reprieve there with Carl Lawson being out. But Uber, what are your thoughts on this Jets team? Are you believing the hype, whether it's the defense or the offense with Aaron Rodgers and Mecole Hardman and Garrett Wilson and Allen Lazard? Are you buying this hype?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple ways to answer that. Like, one, I predicted this team will go 11-6. That's my prediction. So I think they're legit. I think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're the 85 Bears or remotely close to that, to be honest. Like, the defense is very, very good. It's not all-time great. And I think there's things that we can look at last season and say we can expect regression more than progression this season. Just one example, they played 6 backup quarterbacks. Six of their games were started by backup quarterbacks due to injuries. The Bills, who did play some backup quarterbacks, none of them were the result of an injury. Like, that was the decision of the team. So you just see like the difference there in how these games were played. Like, when you play, they didn't play 2 once last year. That's a big deal. So I wonder how that's going to work out this year. I still think they're dangerous. They have an all-pro at every level on the defense. You go Quinnen Williams, CJ Mosley, Sauce Gardner. So it's going to be hard to, score on them, but not impossible. On the offensive side of the ball, I just keep going back to the same thing. I don't think the pieces around Aaron Rodgers this year on the Jets are better than the pieces that were around him last year on the Packers. And that all comes down to offensive line. And when you're a 39-year-old quarterback, you need a really good offensive line. There's just too many question marks with this team right now to say that offensive line is remotely close to the same level that the Packers had.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see this Jets team and how they come out and how they perform. To me, it's not even about the hype from the media, the hype from the outside. Just watching Hard Knocks, I get a feeling that this team is really full of itself and that they just have like a very, very high sense of self-worth, but like not in a good way. In one of those ways where there might be just a little bit too overconfident, too over cocky. I could be wrong. I mean, they could come out here and shit kick us tonight and I'll have to eat crow, but that's the worst case scenario. If it happens, I'll probably be puking by halftime. But to me, I'm quietly confident in the Buffalo Bills tonight, and I am very, very quietly confident that the Jets, while a very, very good football team, the hype that they are giving themselves and the hype that the media is giving them might be just a little bit too high. I'm kind of with you, Uber. I think they're a 10, 11, 12 win football team, and that's pretty much wild card at this point with how good the AFC is. So it'll be really interesting to see how things shake out over the course of the season. I want to move on now to what everyone wants to talk about. Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, this new look offense. You see a number of changes to this offense in 2023. James Cook, Damian Harris, Latavius Murray are now the three heads in your backfield. It's going to be really interesting to see how those guys play out tonight. You add Deontay Hardy and Trent Sherfield to the receiving core. You add Dalton Kincaid, the first-round pick. You could see the Buffalo Bills running a heck of a lot more 12 personnel than they have in years previous. And then you have some new starters on the offensive line. Connor McGovern is active. He could be starting at left guard this evening. If not, it'll be David Edwards. Quietly confident it will be Connor McGovern. I haven't had a chance to look and see if the beat reporters have reported anything, but if they're going 8 offensive linemen tonight, they're probably pretty confident in Connor McGovern's ability. And then obviously Osiris Torrance there at right guard. So a new look Buffalo Bills offense. Tilds, I'm going to start with you. What are your expectations heading into this game? What do you think this offense is going to try to do to combat this very, very, very good Jets defense?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to do this, but the contrarian in me would like to maybe see them try to run a bit off the right side, right? No Carl Lawson there. They got Jermaine Johnson in there on the left end for the Jets tonight. Obviously, you have to deal with Quinnen Williams in the middle, but I wouldn't mind seeing the Bills try to get the run game going a little bit off the right side with guys like Osiris Torrance and Spencer Brown. Osiris Torrance came into the league as maybe the best guard in the draft class, but more known for his run blocking than his pass blocking. And we know that's been his strength throughout training camp. And Spencer Brown, athletically, when he gets kind of on the move in the run game, he looks pretty damn good as well. And Eric did a really good job this, over the last several weeks, kind of breaking down some Spencer Brown film in the running game. Right. And not just talking about the pass protection. So to me, if you want to be a little contrarian, if you're the Bills and you want to kind of maybe show that you've changed up the swagger or attitude a bit with that offensive line, and you don't want to be considered this kind of finesse, quote, offensive line, right, that the Bills have kind of been labeled for the past couple years, maybe it's not the worst idea in the world to kind of get that run game going off the right side, some new faces. You mentioned Damian Harris. I think he could be a beneficiary of that. And the Bills can roll 3 deep running backs tonight off that right side. And so I'm not saying that they're going to necessarily do that or really do it in volume, but it will be interesting to me if they start the game out maybe trying something like that to kind of neutralize maybe where the Jets might look at the Bills, as Aaron said, in that right side of the line being a big weakness. But to get those guys' confidence going, maybe it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to at least start the game out and kind of trying to run off that right side. So that's the start, I think. And then the other key for me is the middle of the field with Kincaid, Knox, and even a guy like Deontay Hardy, right? James Cook out of the backfield. I think over the middle of the field where the Jets maybe struggle the most on this defense is coverage in the middle with linebackers. Mosley is a very good backer, but he's more of a thumper type these days than he is really a pass defender. And I think it could be a Kincaid coming out party tonight, along with Knox. Don't forget about him. And the middle of the field, short intermediate area of the field, make the ball come out quickly from Josh Allen's hands. Don't even give the Jets defensive line a chance to get home. So to me, those are two things that I would maybe game plan if I was the Bills offense coming into this game. Sequencing, I'm not sure how that will go, but those would be two things that I would maybe try to lean on early in the game.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills are going with all three tight ends active plus Reggie Gilliam. I mean, there was always a possibility Quentin Morris could have been maybe one of those players who made the inactive list. Latavius Murray was another player who maybe possibly could have been inactive, and the Buffalo Bills rolled with two running backs. Again, a smaller possibility because there's always the possibility with no Taiwan Jones as a failsafe this year, even though he really wasn't an offensive player, that the Buffalo Bills weren't going to roll two traditional running backs again. But Morris, Murray, Harris, there's a real chance that maybe the Buffalo Bills looked at this weather report and thought to themselves, okay, we have to make Kyrie Elam inactive because we need to have these guys on the field to be able to have maybe more of a traditional run game. Uber, what are your thoughts on the way the Buffalo Bills offense is going to attack this Jets defense tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I liked what Tilt said a lot, attacking that right side and also mentioning the tight ends. I think you're going to see a lot of Dawson Knox right on Spencer Brown's hip. Every play, whether it's pass or run, give Brown some help, chip whoever the defensive end is over there, even if it's just I'm going out for a route, like chip him. And then if CJ Mosley picks up Dawson Knox, that's a mismatch. Like Knox should win that all day. Mosley, all pro linebacker, but he's meant to come forward and make a play at the line of scrimmage. He's not meant to cover an athlete like Knox. And then adding to that, Dalton Kincaid, which I know every Bills fan is excited about. Who is going to cover him? I know the Jets are going to play a lot of zone, but who's going to cover him off the jump? I think it's going to be Michael Carter, who's a great nickel corner, great out of the slot. But at the same time, Kincaid's bigger than him. Like that's a mismatch too. Over the middle of the field, Kincaid and Knox all night long. That should be where the Bills live, and then just run down their throats. Like if the Bills can establish the run this season or this game, it's going to go such a long way come season's end for how well this offense can play.
Yeah, I'm actually pulling up Michael Carter III's size right now because I'm pretty sure I gave you this little. I think he's a wee man. Like I don't think he's a very big guy. He is. And my apologies for taking so long. Yeah, he's 5'10", 184. And this is what the Buffalo Bills. This is why the Buffalo Bills drafted Dalton Kincaid. Right? Come out in base. We'll spread you out. And we'll get the mismatch that way. If you want to come in and nick and two, because we'll have a size mismatch and we'll have a better ability to run the football in the run game. So the Buffalo Bills drafted Dalton Kincaid for this very reason, to provide them with mismatches both in the run game and the pass game when you decide to trot out your nickel and a guy like Michael Carter who's 5'10", 185 pounds. And you mentioned Dalton Knox in the hip pocket of Spencer Brown. That was actually on my list of things to look for. This 12 personnel is going to open up a lot of things for the Buffalo Bills. And I think the most beneficial thing it's going to do is I think it's going to be able to give these offensive tackles a little bit of a reprieve against some of these defensive lines that have some good edge rushers, because you can keep them in. You're going to want to use them as receivers, but you can keep them in. They can chip. They can help you set the tone, and they can help take some of the pressure off your offensive tackles in the pass blocking game while you still utilize them as a receiver. So I think you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel from the Buffalo Bills tonight, especially with the weather is the way it is, the way the Jets pass rush is, and the fact that they're probably going to have to work the middle of the field a ton because of the two really, really good corners that the Jets have in DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner. But David Fox, what are your thoughts on how this Buffalo Bills offense is going to need to attack this Jets defense?
So I think that they need to be patient, because like the way that this style of defense works, like Saleh is one of these, Seattle cover 3 type of guys. So they're willing to let you kind of dink and dunk on them down the field. You kind of just have to play that game a little bit until they decide to adjust, right? You have to be able to, again, this is where Dalton Kincaid really comes in, because he's going to get those sort of option choice routes over the middle. And against those Jets linebackers, like Uber brought up, like these guys are both good linebackers. Both him and Quinn Williams can come up and make plays at the line of scrimmage, but neither of them are really like great pass coverage guys. Again, Michael Carter, we just talked about, really good nickel corner, but again, the size mismatch between him and Kincaid is very, very obvious, or Knox or Morris for that matter. So finding ways to be patient and then setting up the right plays at the right time to take shots, to make some big plays, to keep your offense in rhythm without it like stagnating and just having to go on a bunch of like 18 play drives or whatever. Like there has to be the right balance, and that's always a very it's a difficult thing to actually execute, right? Like we all know that you want that balance between execution and big plays and taking what's given to you, et cetera, versus actually doing it. So I do think that this is that balance that they're going to have to find. Finding that run game early on is going to be important. And like Tilt said, like running it to the right side where Torrance and Brown can get a little bit more in rhythm and they're attacking as opposed to like letting the Jets come at them in pass pro or whatever. Although, Aaron Cromer is one of these guys who preaches pass protection is not passive, right? So you need, but I do think that getting them confident and getting them ready to hit and moving downhill first will be a better start for them than just going pass. And I think when you have 3 running backs active, right, with Cook and Harris and Murray, I'd like to see some multiple back sets with those guys, even without Gilliam, right? And trying to see what's going to work. I mean, Damian Harris has played well against the Jets when he was in New England. So there's ways of attacking. And this is what the Bills have, right? The Bills have options. It's not one thing or another. That's sort of what the offense felt like at times last year was, if it's not going to be in rhythm because, there's no presence over the middle or they can't get the run going, then it's just big plays and Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things. It's not really the case this year. You have a better offensive line for starters. You have a run game that I think is more complete than it was last year. And I think that you have better options at receiver and a tight end, and the middle of the field, which was just not really there or consistently there last year, is going to be much better this year.
Yeah, I like your take at the beginning when you talked about being patient because the Jets are going to give you some of those layups early on. I think that's 100% going to be the Jets' defensive strategy is to test Josh Allen's patience, right? Like, Josh, are you going to get antsy in your pantsy, trying, dinking and dunking? Are you going to try to make that big play down the field? And if you do, are you going to make that mistake that you made that helped, contribute to you leading the league in turnovers last year? I think you're going to see a game plan very, very similar to the Rams game plan where the Buffalo Bills are going to take shots down the field, but they're going to be calculated shots. And the Buffalo Bills are going to take the underneath stuff as given to them, even if it's not running, even if it's just passes, whether it's to the slot, to guys like Deontay Hardy, Trent Sherfield. You're going to see a lot of motion, a lot of window dressing, a lot of guys moving around to figure out what coverage it is the Jets are in. And you're going to see them work down the ball down the field, and you might not see that shot until the second quarter of the game, like the Buffalo Bills did to Gabriel Davis, or they did to Stefon Diggs in the second half of that Rams game last year. I think you're going to see a return to that type of form for the Buffalo Bills because you can't just go out there all willy-nilly throwing the ball around on this Jets defense. That's something that will get you into a lot of trouble. One take that I've had, and then in a moment I'm going to ask you guys for maybe one take that you've been talking about all off season that maybe you're looking to come to fruition today, especially in regards to the offense. And I apologize, your boy Lettuce. Thank you, Dave, for putting that up. He's coming in confident. His take is Bills 55 Jets 0. That is
manifest.
He's always coming.
Manifest
he's always
what
coming
you
with
want
the
in life.
Yep. But my take all off season has been I believe that James Cook is going to be that dude for the Buffalo Bills between the 10 and the 10. And I think that Damian Harris and Latavius Murray, yes, they'll be utilized in short yardage situations. Yes, they'll be utilized to give James Cook breathers, but I don't think it's going to be like it was last year with Devin Singletary, where it's like, this drive is your turn. This drive is your turn. I think James Cook is that bell cow between the 10, and Murray and Harris are mostly going to be used in short yardage and red zone situations. Do you guys have any sort of takes about the Buffalo Bills offense that you're looking to see if they come to fruition in week 1 against the New York Jets?
I guess for me, I want to see them use. I want to see them use. You mentioned the window dressing. I want to see how creative they get pre-snap, specifically maybe in this game as well. Right, the Jets. I mean, Eric and Pro Ant did a great job scouting the Jets' bottom 10 defense when against plays when the team uses pre-snap motion. Top 10 defense when teams don't use pre-snap motion. So the Bills really need to do that, right? And I think that is something that, to your point, Steve, like will help some of that issues we saw last year. David, you mentioned it too, where it was like, let's just kind of drop back and see what Josh can do. Like, no, let's be a little bit more smarter about how we approach the offense this year. Let's use a lot more pre-snap motion. Let's really get a little bit more cerebral with how we want to attack defenses and have more creative and high percentage sort of plays in our back pocket that we can give guys some layups, right? Give Dawson Knox some layups, give Dalton Kincaid some layups, even Stefon Diggs early in the game, even if he's just touching the ball and it's a 5-6 yard play, get him the touches early, and then things will open up. And to your point around James Cook, Steve, I think that's fair. But I don't know that means he's going to do anything more than like the 200 carry mark that we've seen out of the likes of Singletary in years past. Pass protection has been good in the preseason, as we've seen on the film. So that will obviously help him. And at the end of the day, like, I think him and Harris are great complements for each other. So it makes sense to me for kind of Cook to be that guy between the 10s. But I don't necessarily think that means he's going to have like a 250, 270 carry type season.
Dave Fox, you were going to mention something as well. What's something that you want to see sort of from this offense this year?
Yeah, I think that something that I want to see is a little, just like tweak a little bit of what Josh Allen is willing to do and not do, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we could talk about what Ken Dorsey wants to do on offense and what, take what the defense gives you, all that sort of stuff. But it also like comes down to Josh Allen also doing that. And we know that Josh Allen doesn't always want to do that. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to find a better balance of Josh Allen's going to do what Josh Allen's going to do, and that's what makes him special. You don't want to take that away from him. At the same time, you also need to know that, like, some of these ridiculous turnovers happen because you're pressing and doing too much when you're not needing to do that. The end of that Vikings game last year is a perfect example of that. In overtime, they're at the 30-25, right, with a chance to walk off and win this game, and he just chucks it into the end zone and it gets intercepted. And it's just like, that's not what you need to do right there. You don't need to just like go win this right in this very play. Just like there's more than that and enough opportunities to get to that position. So just figure out what you need to be able to do to get to that spot. And again, it kind of goes back into like how they use Josh Allen as a runner, right? We don't want to rely on Josh Allen as the only short goal line type of running back that they have. That's why you get Damian Harris and Latavius Murray, because they are proven, especially Latavius Murray, to be super effective in those situations. And you have James Cook to spell them in between all those sorts of situations, or maybe the other way around, regardless. But Josh Allen's rushing ability is special, but it's also special because he can do it as a passer, right? Like that's what makes quarterbacks who can run so difficult to defend, because that's not what they're supposed to be doing in this game. So when you get into position and be able to use and maximize what Josh Allen does as a rusher without having to put him into overly compromising positions because you have to, I think that creates a better balance. And I think that having Allen be a little more patient will also create a better balance. That's what I'm hoping to see more in this offense.
Uber, how about you? Anything from this offense that you've been maybe preaching this offseason you wanted to see, that you want to see become a reality here in week 1?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go back to kind of what Tilt said too. We've seen all these signs that this offense is going to be way more creative this year. And one of the things I always like go back to in camp, and I don't know why this is burned in my head, the Bills lined up many times in camp in that like diamond formation, right? 3 backs around Josh Allen, back in shotgun. Like, there's going to be some wild stuff, and I think you're going to see some wild stuff today that the Bills are going to do something completely different. For that reason, I think this season you're going to see Ken Dorsey kind of unleash like this bag of trickery I believe he wanted to release last year, but he might have not had the pieces. Like, they brought in O.J. Howard. They really wanted to go 12 personnel last year. He wasn't it. They couldn't do that last year. Then they go sign Dalton Kincaid or draft Dalton Kincaid this year. They have a plan. They just weren't able to execute it this year. And now with a healthy Josh Allen and way more weapons around him, I honestly believe than he's ever had, I think you're going to see this bag of trickery come out of Ken Dorsey's hands. And Josh Allen just seems just fit to be in this trickery offense almost.
All right, so we've gotten the offensive part of the show off of our chest. Now we get to move on to the nitty-gritty, and that is the defense. The Buffalo Bills defense, they've added Leonard Floyd. Christian Benford is now, he started last week 1, but he wasn't like a solidified starter. He's a solidified starter now. Micah Hyde returns. So you get a new middle linebacker in Terrell Bernard, which I'm sure is going to come up a ton in the conversation that we are about to have. And then you have the New York Jets offense, which Aaron Rodgers, Brees Hall, who's playing tonight. You have Dalvin Cook. You have Alan Lazard. You have obviously Garrett Wilson. You have, I'm just going to start naming the names, Mecole Hardman, CJ Azuma, Tyler Conklin. They have some really, really good football players in this offense. And again, just like Brees Hall is playing tonight, so is Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton, the two bookends on that offensive line. Laken Tomlinson, their Connor McGovern, and Elijah Vera Tucker round out that offensive line. So David Fox, I'll start with you, and then we'll work the other way around here. I don't know if you guys have caught on to that yet. I go Tilt, Uber, Dave, and then I go Dave, Uber, Tilt. So I don't know if you figured that out yet, but that's my go-to here. So Dave Fox, we'll start with you. What are your expectations for this Buffalo Bills defense and how they're going to attack this New York Jets offense?
So for the last, pretty much since Sean McDermott has been here, Leslie Frazier has been the defensive coordinator until this year. We've pretty much from year one, you saw what Leslie Frazier's defense was. It was a very sort of passive, let them kind of go as many plays and see how many plays they can go without making a mistake, right? And when you have safeties and DBs like they've had, and they kind of got, in a way, lucky in some sense to get Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer in the same year and then keep them for this entire run. Because what they're able to do with them is what allows for a lot of consistency from year to year, with turnovers, with being able to cover well, all that sort of stuff. Now you have Frazier out, leaving football. Now he's an analyst, right? He's on, which is interesting. Not someone I thought would be a talker for a living, but whatever. But now you have McDermott, and McDermott, like Frazier and many other defensive coordinators, comes from that Jim Johnson coaching tree in Philadelphia. And Jim Johnson was known to be a heavy, aggressive blitzer and put together some great defenses when he was with Andy Reid in Philadelphia. And McDermott took over the reins when Jim Johnson passed away in 2009. And brought that same sort of mentality of being aggressive, bringing a lot of pressures, doing a lot of different things. And that's not really what Leslie Frazier ever did in his career. I mean, whether it was in Minnesota, whether it was in Tampa Bay, in Buffalo, and he had varying degrees of success kind of based on the talent of the players that he had. So with McDermott, though, I mean, you saw in Carolina where, I mean, even Ron Rivera said in the owners' meetings earlier this year, he said, McDermott's a very aggressive defensive coordinator, and there were times where I had to kind of dial him back a little bit. And that's what I want to see. I want to see some more creativity on defense. I don't want to see the same sort of, drop back here, make sure you're in your zones, here are your checks, go do what you need to do. Create a little havoc, create a little chaos. You see like what Dallas did, and Dallas is a very extreme example of this, but you look at what Dallas did last night with Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn does a lot of creative, crazy stuff with that defense. And that defense, personnel-wise, is kind of odd. Like, they don't have a whole lot of, like, overly traditional players, but he makes it work with what they have, and he does it with creativity and aggression. And that's the sort of thing that I want to see from this defense, is a little more creativity, a little more aggression, more disguising and playing games at the line of scrimmage in particular, bringing up multiple guys into the A-gaps. One of my best friends, now a defensive coordinator, coaching high school in Tennessee. One of the things he always talked about was try to confuse that center as much as you possibly can. Get two guys in the A gaps. Try and get guys on the line of scrimmage. You saw, maybe if anybody was watching that Browns game yesterday, what Jim Schwartz loves to do, 5 guys on the line of scrimmage, hand in the dirt, or maybe not even hand in the dirt. Just try and create some confusion on where things are going to be coming from. And it can't just be post-snap tackle and stunts and stuff like that. Figure out what you're going to do pre-snap and try and create some aggression, especially when you have a new middle linebacker like Terrell Bernard, who is not going to give you the same athleticism and ranginess and length that Tremaine Edmonds brought you in previous years. Play some games with him because he is athletic. Terrell Bernard is an athletic player for sure, but bring him on some blitzes, see where he can do in coverage, because he can play in coverage. We know that. That is something that Eric has talked about this offseason a lot, is the fact that Terrell Bernard, like more than anything else, you probably feel pretty comfortable with him in coverage. So yeah, play some games, figure out what you need to do. Be a little more aggressive and be a little different.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, you mentioned creating chaos, and one of the things that I think I want to see from the Buffalo Bills is in creating that chaos, you have Bernard and you have Matt Milano. Get some A-gap blitzes in there. Like, have them just apply pressure up the middle, get in Aaron Rodgers' face. One of the things that we've been talking about wanting to see for almost 3 years now is, can we get Gregory Rousseau kicked inside? Like, Gregory Rousseau played a lot of, going back to his Miami tape, played a lot of zero tech. Like, he lined up directly over the center, and it wreaked a lot of havoc on college offensive lines. Maybe getting Gregory Rousseau out there, like in the zero tech, doing those various different types of things just to get the New York Jets thinking, as you mentioned, create some chaos before the snap. I think you're going to see more creativity from Sean McDermott than you saw from Leslie Frazier. And I think that could be advantage Bills, especially week 1, because the Bills haven't put any of that on tape. So the Jets haven't gotten to see any of it. So I'm glad we're playing a division opponent week 1, and we get that maybe slight advantage, because in a week where guys are going to be a little bit rusty, guys are going to be making mistakes, every little advantage counts in a week like this and in a division game as well. But Uber, what are some things that you're expecting to see from this defense, whether it's just the season in general or specifically against this New York Jets offense?
Yeah, I think against this Jets offense, I'll go there in particular, is just like the Bills, that right tackle is a major question mark for the Jets. Now, Mekhi Becton, his rookie season, flashed this insane ability. He was going to be a franchise left tackle, but injuries and other weird happenings have kind of slowed that down. He's changed his body, all these things, but he hasn't really played football in essentially 2 years. I think the Bills attack him. They go just straight at him. Matt Milano's blitzing at him. You send Leonard Floyd, maybe Greg Rousseau. You just keep playing with him. See where you can find a hole off of Mekhi Becton. And if the Bills can find a hole, if it's not there somewhere else on that offensive line, that's where you spell disaster for the Jets. And the person I think that creates the biggest disaster, the biggest issues for the Jets, is Matt Milano. We saw him literally turn what a lot of people have been saying on Twitter, turn Mike White into a folding table last year. There's no reason he can't do the same thing to Aaron Rodgers this game. I think Matt Milano is probably the key piece of this game. And one more thing I'll just bring up too, because I've been hammering this all off season. I just don't see how this can't be the case. Taylor Rapp, to me, is not on the Bills to be a backup safety. Like that, he's not just the backup safety. There has to be something more. I can't imagine that the Bills don't play more dime defense this season than they have in seasons past, where they essentially played no dime defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a third down today early on in the game, like a 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11 for the Jets, where it's Taylor Rapp and Matt Milano at linebacker for Buffalo.
Dave, how about you? Any thoughts on the defense in general, or specifically game planning against these New York Jets here?
Well, I think that first and foremost is the magnifying glass can be on Terrell Bernard, but I also don't think that it's fair to expect that he's stepping into the same role that Tremaine Edmonds is leaving behind, right? Because of the things we mentioned. Sean McDermott stylistically, hopefully, right, will be bringing some new and interesting things to the table, new to this team anyway, not new to him necessarily, but that's why maybe guys like Dorian Williams, Terrell Bernard, right, these guys maybe are a fit for some things that he wants to do, and maybe the stress that the defense has historically put with Leslie Frazier on that middle linebacker spot is there's going to be an effort to maybe mask that a bit from Sean McDermott and using guys to their strengths, like we've said, with Bernard blitzing, playing in coverage, etc. So I guess the thing that I'm looking forward to the most this season to wrap this, conversation on the defense is what is going to change, right? What is going to look different this year? The personnel assignments that we've seen in Leslie Frazier's defense over the past 4 years, are they going to be different? Are guys going to be lining up in different places? Are the Bills going to maybe use more 3 safety looks, as Uber mentioned, with Taylor Rapp in the mix, maybe as like a thick dime or whatever you want to call it. Like, that's going to be, to me, the most interesting thing, because at this point, this defense, the responsibility is going to fall at the feet of Sean McDermott. There's no one else to point the finger at this point. So he's got to own it. I feel much more comfortable in that being the case for him now in year 5 or whatever he's in, year 5, year 6, than if he were doing this in like year 1, right? So he's got enough of a pulse on this team that I'm comfortable that he's going to be able to handle those responsibilities. And while he has his flaws as well, I don't think that this is going to be one of them.
Yeah, just so much to look out for on the defense tonight. You got Jordan Poyer. He's finally back. He's healthy again. He played last year so much when he wasn't healthy. And even when he did play and he played injured, the stats were incredible. We lost 1-2 games last year where he started. So having him back there, not just back there, but back there and healthy, it's going to be really fun to watch and see how he returns. Trey White, almost 2 years now removed from his ACL. Terrell Bernard, right? Like, he started a game last year, but then his previous start before that was the 2021 Sugar Bowl, where he had 17 tackles, 2 sacks, and the pass deflection, was named MVP of that game. So now he's coming out here as a starter in year 2, knowing this defense, hopefully like the back of his hand now. And then Ed Oliver is going to live up to the contract. Gregory Rousseau, Von Miller's putting some lofty expectations on him in the most recent Athletic piece. And you've got AJ Epinesa in a contract year and Leonard Floyd. Just so much to look forward to and to look out for on this defense. And I'm going to retain none of it until the second watch, because I'm going to be too busy breathing into a paper bag, living on every snap here. But transitioning now, for those people who have never watched this pregame show before, we like to get a little goofy in the back half of the show. And we always like to do our pregame superlatives, where we hand out a couple of superlatives. We make some predictions before the game starts. And we used to have some really fun videos that went along with said pregame predictions, but YouTube, they kind of don't like fun. They're the no fun zone here on YouTube. And we've gotten the cease and desist letter a couple of times now, including one from the band Creed. So that's always fun. But ladies and gentlemen, we're still going to come at you with our pregame superlatives. And we start with the aforementioned Creed, because we have, and I'm missing the graphic here. I got to pull it up. We have our Take Me Higher player of the game. So poor Uber, he's got Scott Strapp in his face now. We'll take it down in a second. Don't worry, Uber. We always like to start with our Take Me Higher player of the game. And this is the star player or name player on the Buffalo Bills, not named Josh Allen, who's going to need to step up in a big way in order for the Buffalo Bills to be successful and to win this football game. So Uber, since you got the mic right there on your face, I'm going to let you start with this one. Who is your Take Me Higher player of the game?
Can we get a little kiss on Scott?
I was about to give him a smooch. Yeah. The person that
I can put him back if you want.
The person who's my Take Me Higher guy is a guy that I'd like to give a smooch as well. He always takes me higher, and that's Matt Milano. I think Matt Milano has to have one hell of a game today, and I expect him to. I think the Bills use him basically as their biggest chess piece on defense all season, where they'll send him all over the place on blitzes, on different weird stunts. They might line him up as a defensive end for all I know. I think Matt Milano is going to put Aaron Rodgers in hell today, or maybe back in a darkness retreat. So he's my Take Me Higher player of the
game. David Fox, how about yourself? Who's your Take Me Higher player of the game?
I'm going to go with James Cook. I think if they can find an early consistency in the run game, then they're going to stick to it. And I think that James Cook is a big part of that. And if he has a really great game right off the bat, it's going to create some tension on that Jets defense on what exactly they want to do to defend this. And it opens up so much more for that offense as a whole, I think.
And guys, when we do this, no pressure, by the way, because the mantra that Dave and myself has is, if we get our prediction wrong, we just pretend like it never happened and move on. And if we get it right, we clip this and we put it on social media and brag like hell about it. So if either of you guys are right, don't worry, I'm gonna clip it for you. And if you're wrong, I'm gonna delete it off of the YouTube. But Till, who is your Take Me Higher player of the game? And Jessica Tense comes in and says hers is Jordan Poyer.
And Jessica's reading my mind. I'm going with Jordan Poyer. I feel like emotionally, he's going to be the guy that leads this defense this year. I think knowing that, him and Micah are potentially on their sunset tour here together. The Bills really need a guy defensively other than Matt Milano to kind of be that emotional leader. And Matt's more emotional when it comes to, I would say, like, reactions after plays, but I think Poyer is the guy that can emotionally get the team revved up, so to speak. And so him being there tonight, I do think this Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson connection is going to be difficult to defend. I could see Jordan Poyer maybe helping in that regard over the middle of the field, helping maybe defend some of these the plays that Aaron Rodgers has been so good at over the years and hitting his backs out of the backfield. We saw him do it for years with Aaron Jones and others. Breece Hall could be that guy, and Dalvin Cook's no slouch as a receiver either. So Jordan Poyer is going to have to be all over the field tonight making plays. And not to mention, I do think the Jets tight ends are a bit underrated, and Conklin and Uzama as receivers. So I think Jordan Poyer is going to have to be the emotional leader on the defense tonight, and I think he's going to have to make a big play tonight, whether it's interception, forced fumble, whatever. And he's the guy to do it. So Jordan Poyer for me.
We got noted Bills insider too. Like, we got inside connections here. Cover one. One of ours is Jordan Poyer's own personal driver, who comes in and says Poyer is driven to the game by Jordan Poyer's driver and driven on the field. My take me higher player of the game is going to be the rookie, the number 25 overall pick, 25, Dalton Kincaid.
Like
Going with Dalton Kincaid. It's been a while since we talked draft, so I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid as my take me higher player of the game. And my reasoning behind that is I feel like the Buffalo Bills are going to have to come out having in 12 personnel. They're going to be doing a lot of chipping, a lot of window dressing, a lot of motion. They're going to need to work the ball over the middle of the field, and Josh Allen is going to need that security blanket if they're going to properly dink and dunk the ball down the field. And to keep Josh Allen patient, he needs a guy who can work himself open underneath, and I think that guy's going to be Dalton Kincaid. I'm saving my stat line prediction for Dalton Kincaid for the hot take segment. So I'm not going to give you any sort of statistical prediction on what I think Dalton Kincaid is going to do today, but I think he's going to come out week one and be an integral part of this offense. And speaking of week one coming out and being an integral part of our offense, we have our next topic, and that is our wild card player of the game. And again, Uber just gets the short end of the stick here.
People have to realize our normal pregame graphics made for two, so this is just kind of overlaying on top of everybody. So
and our wild card player of the game, this is a sort of maybe a surprise player, not one of the star players in the Buffalo Bills who makes a difference, whether it's a game-changing play or something of that nature that helps the Buffalo Bills. Our prediction for who helps the Buffalo Bills get to victory this year. And I'm going to start with mine, and I'm going to go with another rookie. And that rookie is going to be O'Cyrus Torrence, starting his first game at right guard. And the reason why I say this, and I hope it doesn't backfire in my face, I just feel like he's what this offense needed, in a sense that we're going up against Quinnen Williams today. And we go up against Christian Wilkins once a year, and we go up against Christian Barmore, and we always end up going up against Justin Simmons and Chris Jones. The Buffalo Bills have needed that powerful base. The Buffalo Bills have needed that powerful anchor and pass protection. And I think that they finally have it in O'Cyrus Torrence, somebody who can go mano-a-mano with some of these name IDLs that have given the Buffalo Bills issues for years now. And I really am excited to see him get tested early against one of the best players in the National Football League in Quinnen Williams. So my wild card player of the game is going to be O'Cyrus Torrence. Tilt, who you got?
Look, he's wild card for a reason, right? I'm going to dig, I guess, somewhat deep for this one, but I like Leonard Floyd being a wild card player tonight. I think that Von Miller, obviously, the Bills clearly made a concerted effort to bring in sort of a new wave of pass rush help, right? Whether it's the development of AJ Epinesa, signing Leonard Floyd, obviously getting Shaq Lawson back in the mix, Kingsley Jonathan, although he's not active tonight, on the roster. Like, the Bills kind of wanted to remake a little bit that edge room to get a little bit more pass rush pop. And I think Leonard Floyd, and I've been saying this as Uber's phrase, hammering it all off season, I think he could go down as one of the best signings the Bills made in the offseason when this season's said and done, adding that kind of third pass rusher, or really third top tier edge player to go with Rousseau and Miller when Miller's back. I think he can have a big sack tonight in a key moment. He is not afraid of big moments. Obviously, he's played in big games. In the biggest game, he's won a Super Bowl as well. So I like having a guy like Leonard Floyd in the mix tonight because I don't think this game is going to feel too big for him, and I think he can make an impact. So big impact, I think, as a wild card could be Leonard Floyd.
A number of different wild cards coming in, from Daquan Jones to Khalil Shakir to Christian Benford. Uber, who you got this evening as your wild card player of the game?
Yeah, I saw Jason M, I think, said it. Dalton Kincaid's getting all the flowers as the rookie, but I think it's the veteran tight end who's the wild card for this game, which is Dawson Knox. I know that's a little bit, not really fair. He's a veteran player who's played really well for the Bills, but he just seems to me like the Bills' biggest mismatch on offense versus the Jets defense. Like, there's just no one on the Jets team that screams they can cover Dawson Knox, and that seam should be open all game. If they start focusing on Kincaid, you just look at Knox. Watch Knox. He'll be wide open every day, every play, and I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Allen feeds him 2 touchdowns tonight.
David Fox, how about yourself? Who's your wild card player of the game?
I'm going to go with Christian Benford. I think that the Jets' new reloaded wide receiver room, obviously a lot of former Packers on there. And, we kind of have an idea of what we're getting with Trey White. We assume and hope that he will be returning more to form than what he was last year, obviously coming off the ACL injury. And if one would think that he's probably going to get matched up with Garrett Wilson the majority of the time. And Wilson's going to win some. Trey's probably going to win some. It's going to be a tough battle. But outside of that, they still have other receivers that are legitimately good players on this team. And Benford needs to be able to lock up as much of that as he can, whether that's Benford or Jackson, right? I mean, this rotation, maybe the rotation of the two, which is what we'll probably end up seeing, is more of this wild card. They need to be able to not allow Aaron Rodgers to funnel one way or the other, right? You need to be able to create that sort of tension that you need.
All right. We're going to go right back to you, David Fox. And our next superlative here is the respect you player of the game. This is a player on the opposing team that us as the Buffalo Bills, we have to respect in order to win this football game. David Fox, who is your respect you player of the game?
It's probably the most obvious one, at least in my mind, and that's Garrett Wilson. It seriously annoys me that somebody as talented and as great as Garrett Wilson is named Garrett. That seems wrong. That seems like an offense to football, but whatever. He's such a good player. It's ridiculous. I mean, what he was able to do last year with their quarterback, if you even want to call it that. I mean, they were so bad at quarterback last year. And the fact that he had over 1,000 yards and won Offensive Rookie of the Year is unbelievable. I don't think people really fully realize how incredible of a performance he had as a rookie in that offense last year. And whatever Aaron Rodgers becomes or is this year as a 40-year-old quarterback, he's going to make damn sure to let everyone know how good Garrett Wilson is. I think that you could see like a Rodgers to Devontae Adams type of connection. He's that type of player.
Uber, how about you? Who is your respect you player of the game?
Yeah, a little bit outside the box here. John Franklin Myers, defensive lineman for the Jets. He can line up on the outside or inside. The reason I'm bringing him up is because I think the Bills are going to double team Quinnen. And I think that's going to be, let's say, Connor McGovern and Mitch Morris for most of the time. And then it's going to be John Franklin Myers one-on-one with either Spencer Brown or Osiris Torrance. They're going to test those two guys with one of maybe their second best defensive lineman in John Franklin Myers, who's a damn good player that a lot of people just don't know about.
Tilt, how about you? Who's your respect you player of the game?
I mean, it's easy to go Sauce Gardner here, but I'm going to go Quinnen Williams. I think that the Bills obviously bringing in 2 new guys to start opposite sides of Mitch Morse, right? You got Connor McGovern on the left. You got the rookie and Osiris Torrance on the right. Quinnen Williams just got his huge payday and well-deserved. He's a phenomenal player. That pressure up the middle scares me a lot from Quinnen Williams. And also the run game, I feel like in order to neutralize or in order to get going in the run game, you need to find a way to maybe slow Quinnen Williams down a bit. And I think the Bills are going to have their hands full trying to do that with two new faces there, on the inside. And so while I don't think the Bills should shy away from trying to run the ball, I do think they need to be aware of where Quinnen Williams is and kind of do whatever they can to try to take him out of plays. Because I think if he gets in the backfield, he makes a game-changing type play. That's going to be a huge emotional kind of uplift for the Jets. So I'll say Quinnen Williams.
I was going to go with Garrett Wilson. I mean, you saw what happened yesterday. Like the Chargers either didn't have a plan or had a really bad plan for Tyreek Hill. And that's what happens when the other team's best receiver pops off. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, you have to have a plan for Garrett Wilson. But since he's been taken, I will go with Sauce Gardner because you got to have a plan for him as well. Just like the Buffalo Bills had a plan last year for Jalen Ramsey, right? Mm-hmm. It was dink and dunk down the field, lull them to sleep, and then take calculated shots down the field. I don't know if the Buffalo Bills are going to come out right away and test Sauce Gardner the way they did with Stefon Diggs last season when he caught that big pass on the first play of the game when they were in Highmark Stadium. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be a little bit more smart, a little bit more, I shouldn't say not more smart because it was smart. The play worked, but I think they're going to be more calculated and they're not going to take as big of a risk on the first play of the game. I think they will take more of that approach that they took in the Rams game. So I'm going to go with Sauce Gardner. You got to have a plan for him. It's disgusting. I hate the fact that they got those two guys with their first two picks last year because they're so disgustingly good and they're going to be so disgustingly good for a long time. All right. We got 4 out of 5 ESPN analysts coming in and saying that the New York Jets are going to win this football game. Ryan Clark is the only one giving the Buffalo Bills any love. And even then, according to the comment section, he's only given the Bills a win by 1 point. So we will get to our game predictions in a moment. But first, while we have you here, we got about 10 minutes to kick off. So don't worry, we're gonna leave the stream before the game kicks off. And before we get to our game predictions and close things out, people ask all the time, what is the number one way you can support us here at Cover One? And the number one way you can support us here at Cover One is with the Cover One Pass subscription. So here is Greg and here is Aaron from the Cover One Buffalo podcast, real quick, talking to you guys about the Cover One Pass subscription.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
All right. So we're gonna skip over our hot take. So if you want to share your hot take, while giving your game prediction, you can. But we're just a little time crunch today. Not used to a panel of 4 people giving their prediction, their analysis. So we're going with our game predictions here, taking a trip back to the future. Tilt, start us off. Paint a picture for us. How is this game going to end?
I respect the Jets, what they've done with the roster. I do think they have a really good roster. I think Uber hit it on the head saying that they're going to be a good team, but I don't know if that means they're going to make the playoffs or not. Not that is the end all be all barometer, but I do think they're a good team. I don't think the Bills should take the Jets lightly, nor do I think they will. The Bills have been pretty good on primetime in recent years. And I just don't want the Bills to what David Fox said, like, don't get impatient in this game. I could see it being a little bit of a feeling out contest here early in the game. I could see it being a little bit sloppy early in the game. Look at the games yesterday. There was some pretty bad football in the first halves and in some of those games even completely. And so I'm going to try not to get too upset if things come out of the gate slow, judging by what happened yesterday. But I do think this will be a tight game. I think ultimately the Bills will have enough firepower to pull this thing out, but I do think it will be close and it will go under. Bills 23, Jets 17.
All right, I'm going to share my prediction real quick, and then we're going to let the Cover One Roundup guys round us out for this evening. I'm going Bills 27, Jets 23. I think it's going to be a tight one. I think it's going to be back and forth for a majority of the game. I think it's going to be maybe a slow-ish start because, as Dave said, the two teams are feeling each other out. My hot take for this evening is I think Dalton Kincaid's going to be statistically the best tight end in the NFL week 1. I'm not saying he's the best tight end in the NFL, but I think statistically he will have 60-plus yards, and I think he's going to get 1 or 2 touchdowns this week. So that's my hot take for Dalton Kincaid. I think he's going to get off to a real hot start in Buffalo because I think his presence is going to be important to counteracting this Jets defense. I'm going Bills 27, Jets 23. Aaron Rodgers gets the ball. He's driving the Jets down to score, and the Buffalo Bills are going to get a stop as time expires. So the Buffalo Bills 27, the Jets 23, and Uber, we'll leave it to you to make your prediction here.
Yeah, I'll get Bills 28, Jets 24. I think Buffalo has a secret advantage here, sneaky advantage here, let's say. I don't think that the Jets know what the Bills are going to do on offense or defense. I think for the most part, the Bills know what the Jets are going to do on offense and defense. I think at the end of the day, that results in 1 more touchdown for the Bills and 1 field goal for the Jets. I think they both score 4 times. Bills win by 4, take a 1-0 division in the lead in the AFC East.
David Fox, you're up. Paint a picture for us, my man.
Bills 24, Jets 17. I think the Jets aren't quite as ready on offense as they want to be. It'll probably improve as the season goes along, but I think that the Bills defense is going to create a little too much chaos. Hot take, Reggie Gilliam scores a touchdown tonight.
Ooh, I like that. And before we head out here, there was one thing that I forgot to mention this evening, and this could come back to bite me, but as good and as talented as the Jets offense is on paper, lest we forget that the 2 geniuses in charge of running that offense are Nathaniel Hackett and Todd Downing. And any Buffalo Bills fans know that that's not exactly a meeting of the minds in charge of that Jets offense. So that statement could come back to bite me because karma. But at the end of the day, that's what gives me the most faith this evening, because I think on paper they're talented, but I also think the 2 guys running that offense are complete buffoons. So I think that the Buffalo Bills will have the advantage there, despite all those names on offense. And who knows, maybe Aaron Rodgers can overcome the buffoonery, because he has certainly done it before, winning a Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy as his head coach. So, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Strays McCarthy's taken.
No, it's been a pleasure. You know me, I like to take my shots at the very end. At the very end is when I like to take my shots. Dave, Uber, tell the people where they can find you, find your work. And I'm sure they all know about the Cover One Roundup, but tell them about the Cover One Roundup anyway.
Well, if you don't know about the Cover One Roundup, every Monday night at 7 o'clock, you can see me. You can see Uber. Where's there we go. You can see me and Uber talk about stuff. We try to keep it about the news. We'll talk about all sorts of different things. We do some little fun segments near the end. A lot of fun. You can also find me on the Bird app, Twitter at DFAUXY or at DFoxy. Go Bills.
Yeah, you find me on Twitter at Uber Hansen. Tonight, especially probably by, I don't know, the end of the first quarter, I will be very drunk, probably spouting off a little bit on Twitter. And I swear, if the Bills win, I have so many receipts ready for after the game, so that should be entertaining. If the Bills don't win, just pretend like I never said anything about those receipts.
If the Bills lose, I'm probably just not going to log into the app for a week. I'll probably be back Sunday before the pregame.
That's smart.
But ladies and gentlemen, you can find us on Twitter. Dave is at Tilt Money. I'm at the Bills Guys. You don't want to follow my personal account. It's boring. And until next time, we're going to go around. We'll start with me, go to Dave, then Uber, and then David Fox. Until next time, ladies and gents, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!